Hi, today I wanted to discuss something that really bothers me with QuickBooks, which is that a lot of people don't really seem to recognize that the software itself is pure and utter crap. So I started using QuickBooks about 6 years ago, and when I had a Lenovo ThinkPad SL410 with its 5400 RPM drive, its Centrino processor that I paid about $200 or $300 for, and I had that thing loaded with, Warcraft 3, DOTA, I had Windows with Yahoo Pool open, I had tons of browser windows open, I was doing a lot of different things with it. I could totally understand why QuickBooks was slow. Then I got more into being a real business, and I got a machine just for QuickBooks. This was a quad-core Ivy Bridge processor. I had 2 SSDs and RAID 0 for the operating system for Windows 7. I did nothing but QuickBooks on this machine, and this crap was still slow as hell. And, the QuickBooks would say, oh, it must be your fault, it must be your system, it must be this, that, or the other. Then I finally started using QuickBooks Online, because a while ago, the POS system I was using had no integration with regular QuickBooks. It would only work with QuickBooks Online. So since I liked this software and it was very useful, and it was one of the only pieces of software that wasn't insanely expensive that would actually integrate with accounting software, I thought it would be worth it to switch to QuickBooks Online. So I switched over to QuickBooks Online. So now I'm using their servers, I'm using their infrastructure, I'm using their everything. And this is still slow as hell, which I'd like to demonstrate today. So again, I'm not using my computer anymore to do this. All the processing is happening there. I'm just viewing it in my web browser. And, I really forgot about this until just recently. So, one of the things that happened in the last month with me is that I incurred a ridiculous amount of expenses that I did not expect I would incur. And like what most business owners do when they run into unanticipated expenses, they start getting rid of the little luxuries, and they look at their business and look for the things that they don't really need to have there. And one of the things I had here was somebody who did nothing but keep track of invoices, keep track of what I received versus what I paid for, and kept track of all my, all the invoices and bank transactions in QuickBooks, which was very convenient, but is honestly something that I could probably spend 30 minutes a day before I come to work doing. So I started doing that again, and dear God, it's just just how ridiculously terrible this is just insane. So let's just so what I want to show you is me just adding basic expenses here. So I know that you can check these boxes and then click batch actions and hit accept selected, but let's say I want to add a memo for something. So let's say I want to click here on where it says PayPal service parts and hit add. I'm going to click add. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Like, do you see how long this shit takes? I mean, do you understand? Like, do you get just, again, how fundamentally bad this is? Now, you may be thinking, my internet sucks, or it's got to be on my end somewhere. So again, this is another machine. This does not have 2 SSDs and RAID 0 for the operating system. It has 1 SSD for the operating system. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's a 3.8 gigahertz 6-core Haswell processor. If I go to speedtest.net here, you will be able to see exactly how much speed is here. You'll be able to see the speed of my connection. Now, I don't have the fastest internet connection in the world here, but you'll see that it should be sufficient for cloud-based accounting software. Again, I am almost at 40 megabit per second down. I'm almost at 40 megabit per second down. I have a 7 millisecond ping time. You're going to see the upload in a second is at least 3 or 4 megabit per second, which again should be enough for cloud-based accounting software. So yeah, let's see what we get here with upload speed. Okay, so I have about, I'm going to round down here, I'm going to say about 3 to 4 megabit per second up, even though it says 5.5 right now. I saw it linger around 3 to 4 before. Let's just round it down to 3. Isn't a 40 megabit per second down and a 3 megabit per second up enough that it shouldn't take 40 seconds to add 1 expense in QuickBooks Online? This is the stuff that's ridiculous. So let's try going back to that window. Again, and keep in mind here, the only thing that I have open right now is this video capturing software called Open Broadcaster, which is using all of 4.8% CPU right now. So I'm using 4.8% of my CPU. Again, this is a 3.8 gigahertz 6-core processor. I have nothing open right now but Internet Explorer and a putty window over to my FTP server over there, and oh, I'm logged into Skype. And look, I have a notepad document open with a script that I use for encoding video. I mean, like, there's really nothing going on this computer. Let's say, I want to click this so that I can get a better idea of the expense so I can add a memo. So let's see, I'm going to click it. Now okay, so you can see after I click it, it takes a good second there for this to actually show up. And again, I'm not trying to use Linux on my desktop right now. I'm not trying to do any kind of funky shit right now. I am using Windows with Internet Explorer, which is the most vanilla setup that this shit should be set up to work at. So let's say I want to add another expense. So this is meals and entertainment. So you can see I just hit add right there, and it doesn't register that I clicked. So just so you can hear the click of the mouse right here, it has no idea that I just clicked. So fuck it. Let's just say Internet Explorer sucks. Let's, again, even though Internet Explorer is the browser that is made, pretty much most things it's compatible with, let's just try Firefox just in case Internet Explorer sucks. We're going to do the same thing here. You probably notice I'm blanking out my email. Even though it's a decent amount of you probably know my email, for those of you that I don't want to know my email, I'd rather just keep it at that. Look, just loading the banking page alone. And again, this is not my platform. This is not my hardware in my QuickBooks Enterprise machine. So let's say I want to click on something else. So let's take a look here. Let's find an expense. Okay, Village Farms. So we click that and we hit add. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, look at how long it takes. Now, let's say you're somebody who is just doing this for work, so you come by once a week. And let's say you're not doing this for my little company. Let's say you're doing this for a company where you have 800 employees, all with their own cards, swiping one expense account. Can you imagine just how fucking miserable that job would be to actually do all this? Just basic tasks in this software take forever, and the reality is that nobody really wants to acknowledge that this software is trash. And the thing that kills me is that people will actually defend this crap. And I'll meet people that say, oh, my system runs great. I don't know what's running wrong with yours. So I'll go, can I see it one day? Maybe I'll stop by your office, get your lunch. And I just out of curiosity, I want to see what I'm doing wrong. And they'll go, sure. And I'll stop by their office and I'll see their QuickBooks setup. And they go to add an expense. And then they go into their Skype window to talk to their wife for about a minute or so. And then they go back to add the next expense. And they go, see, it works great. And you have a different standard for your type of computing than I do. See, if I spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a top-class workstation computer, I expect that when I hit a button on a basic thing, again, I'm not talking about encoding video in real time. I'm not talking about crazy shit. I'm talking about adding about 20 characters to a database, and I hit add. I expect that take less than 30 or 40 seconds. I expect that if I have RAID 0 SSDs for storing this information, a quad-core i7 processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and nothing else going on, that when I hit add, it just adds. And again, you can say, well, my platform is bad. Well, right now, I am using the cloud-based QuickBooks service to give you an example here. So this is not my hardware anymore. This is not my platform. And, QuickBooks code, it's fundamental. It is just garbage. I mean, QuickBooks as an application is incredibly slow, and the actual code that is going on in the background to process all these commands that we're giving it is just garbage. And again, this would be acceptable if this was affordable software. This would be acceptable if this was free. This would be acceptable if this was, you know, like, I deal with Kdenlive crashing. I deal with MLT's memory leaks because it's a video editor that costs $0. So I don't actually have to pay any money for this to work. I can't complain. There are quirks in this very open broadcaster software that I use for the recording, and I can't complain because when I click download on their website, I get a fully fledged version of this software with a community of people who are happy to help me for $0. QuickBooks Enterprise at $2,500 for one license, or 30 or 40 or 50 bucks a month for the online license? Like, no. If your service sucks, you have an obligation to make it better when you are charging that amount of money. QuickBooks, you know, Intuit is not just involved with QuickBooks. They're involved with other business services. They're involved with merchant service solutions. They have so many ways of making money that if they wanted to, they could take this software and rewrite it so it was not just garbage. They would be able to rewrite this software so it was not cock and balls. But they don't want to because they have the industry by the balls. It's the same way that Avid and DigiDesign had the industry by the balls 10 and 15 years ago. So they did a lot of good things in the late 80s and early 90s with designing software that engineers liked. And then once they became the accepted standard, they started fucking people in the ass with terrible, terrible hardware, proprietary, ridiculously priced, awful sounding solutions in software that was incredibly limiting and lacking many basic features because they knew everybody was using it. And the same is true with Intuit and QuickBooks. So my accountant, who has gotten my ass out of the fire thousands of times over because of my careless stupidity, he uses QuickBooks. He wants his clients to use QuickBooks. He enjoys QuickBooks. It's a standard. He knows how everything in it works. He knows how to get everything he needs in it, and he works efficiently in it. Since my accountant likes QuickBooks, I use QuickBooks. And they know that I am not using the software because it's good. They know I'm not using the software by choice. They know I'm using it because my CPA, who is great at what he does, demands that I use QuickBooks. And if I want to use other software, that's great. I get to find another CPA who's not going to pull my ass out of the fire when New York State or City says, hey, you owe us this amount of money, and you'd better find documents dating back 7 years ago to prove otherwise. And I go, and my drawer looks like a garbage pail, and my CPA has, you know, an office where every single document is stored like a little leprechaun with OCD goes through them every day just to make sure they don't get lost, and stamps them and finds them for him when any IRS agent or New York State agent needs it. Like, if I want that accountant who does all these things for me, who says, here's the information that you wanted, Lewis doesn't owe any money, I have to use QuickBooks. And Intuit knows that. And because Intuit knows that, they feel that they don't have to make this software any better. And as long as they think that this software can be at this garbage level of quality, this crap code that just is so broken that, again, on good hardware, takes 30 seconds to add one expense to a database. And again, this is at 1 in the morning. So right now, if you didn't notice, the clock over here says 12:54. This is not during 8 to 5 business hours. This is not when a ton of people are cramming their internet and servers. Call me crazy. I don't think there are, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in Midtown Manhattan accessing QuickBooks Online at 12:54 on a Thursday morning. It's just, you know, I think that it should be working well during these hours, but it doesn't. It works like shit, like it always does. And this is something that they should really be pushed and encouraged to make better. This is something that people should speak out on. And, you know, I still remember having to upgrade to QuickBooks Enterprise. So that's a great one, by the way. So I had I paid a couple of $100 for my regular QuickBooks Pro, and I was using it with Rossmann Supply for inventory. So here's how this worked. I had a program that would sync my Amazon, my website, and my eBay inventory based on QuickBooks. So every single time you bought something, an invoice would instantly be added to QuickBooks. That invoice that was added to QuickBooks would take that item out of inventory. So let's say I had 100 listings on Amazon for one type of screen that was cross-compatible with 100 different machines. That would be, all those 100 listings would be synchronized to one item in QuickBooks. So if you bought that, the inventory in QuickBooks would be taken down by 1. Now, what would happen is that inventory would instantly be synced to my website, my eBay store. So let's say you bought the last of a screen that I had on eBay. Now, that would not still show up as having one left on Amazon and in QuickBooks and in my web store. It would show up as 0 because it would all sync in real time. Now, one day I noticed that everybody was buying, and one day I noticed all these items were selling that I didn't have in stock, and I truly did not understand what was happening or going on until I went to QuickBooks and I noticed I wasn't allowed to add any more invoices. It was something like a 13 or 14 or 15,000 instances, or 15,000 objects, or 15,000 pieces of data, whatever it is. Once you hit 14 or 15,000 customers or invoices or whatever it is, you just can't enter data anymore. You're not allowed. You have to get the enterprise version of QuickBooks. And the difference for my usage between QuickBooks Pro, which is maybe $200, and QuickBooks Enterprise, which is about $2,600. So again, a $2,300 or $2,400 difference in software, just so that I could keep using my business. And they don't tell you this in the beginning. They don't say when you open a new company file, by the way, if you plan on entering 14,000 invoices, you should think about getting the enterprise version, because we will stop you. This entire system, it doesn't matter what you've based your business on, this entire fucking system will stop working as soon as you get to 14,000 invoices. And when that happens, we are going to hold you hostage at gunpoint and say, fuck you, if you don't give us $2,600, you don't get to continue doing business. You won't have time to research alternative solutions, because we're not going to tell you that this is creeping up on you until it's too late. Yeah, you got to understand, like, it's not just the performance that makes QuickBooks awful. It's the entire way that Inuit does business that is just disgusting. Again, if you want $2,600 for your software, that's great. Don't create a $300 piece of software that works until this arbitrary point at which it doesn't. Without informing people to the limitations of the software until they get there and you go, oh fuck, I guess I have to give you $2,300 if I want to continue doing business. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to create software at that $2,600 level, again, you don't understand the kick in the balls that it is to be doing business as usual. And just one day, somebody says, you need to give us $2,600, you cannot do business anymore, and it will all fall apart and become a nightmare. Because again, keep in mind, as soon as that happened, I no longer had an inventory system. I no longer had a bookkeeping system because I could not add invoices. This was a complete and utter nightmare for my company back in 2012. You better be making something that's good. You better have a level of quality of code where when I hit add on a 6-core, 3.8 gigahertz desktop with a 5 megabit per second internet connection, with 7 milliseconds of latency, with an SSD, with nothing else running, you better bet your ass that 20 or 40 characters gets added to that database in less than 30 seconds. But it doesn't. And this is something that you should stop putting up with. This is something that you should start complaining about, and this is something that really needs to change. QuickBooks is slow, poorly coded, crappy software. It was crappy software 10 years ago. It was crappy software 5 years ago. It was crappy software on enterprise desktop 3 years ago. And on cloud-hosted solutions, on their very own web servers, it still sucks balls. And I'm tired of it, and I'm tired of spending money on it, and I am tired of it being the industry standard just because all the good accountants like QuickBooks and all the good accountants and CPA firms are used to using QuickBooks. Please find something else. Please encourage somebody else to develop something that doesn't suck, because I assure you there are people out there that are willing to pay for it. I paid $2,600 for QuickBooks Enterprise. I pay God knows how much for this every month. I'd pay for something that doesn't suck. I'd pay for something that everybody else accepts. You know, we should do this. This really has to end.